Podcast at Ground Zero is presented to you by the Apocalypse. Because without the Apocalypse we wouldn't be doing this show.
Greetings, friends of the Apocalypse. This is Podcast at Ground Zero, your home for the Apocalypse for episode 86. More Apocalypse of Thom Wilson? Is that what I was going to call it, I think? I forgot already.
So much more Apocalypse with Thom Wilson. Just the most.
Thom Wilson. So,
that sounds great.
So what we have on today is, of course, we have the Apocalypse Nerd, and we have Adam Bomb Glancy, and returning to the podcast is Thom Wilson from, I always get it wrong, Throwigames?
Perfect.
Throwigames. Perfect. All right. We had Thom on. Oh, God. It's like I have no sense of time anymore because I've lost a whole year of my life.
Yes.
So I don't know. But I think we had...
The virus apocalypse stole a year from us.
It stole a year from us. But I think we had Thom on in probably 2019. So it's like 2 years ago when the first Gamazine came out for Zine Quest. You know, Gamazine was the first edition fanzine for Gamma World First Edition. So, when we've talked to Thom before, you know, Thom does so much more than just Gamma World. He does a lot of stuff for BX, which is Basic Expert Dungeons and Dragons. He does for other editions too, I believe, just depending on whoever wants him to write stuff. But that's a lot. That's a big part of his focus, and Gamma World is part of his focus too. Now, I know people are going to be, guys, you're talking about Gamma World again. Yes, we are.
Yes, we are. We're man enough to admit that we have a problem.
We have a problem. We have issues. We talk about, you know, all things apocalyptic, but we tend to gravitate towards the things we love. I promise that within the next couple of episodes we will get away from Gamma World because
I don't promise that.
Well, because I want to get, I got to reach out to Bill Barsh,
Yes.
because he's coming out with Gamma X, which is a Gamma World retro clone, and I read your interview in Gamazine 3 with Bill on that. So I want to get him on to talk about that. So yet again, more Gamma World, you know, and people did say about, you know, hey, Gamma World's great, but talk about some more modern games. And I'm like, you know what? You're right. There are a lot of modern post-apocalyptic games that we could talk about, but part of my issue is finding the time to sit down and read the gosh darn rules. So,
yeah, I have. Well, don't worry. I've already digested Mutant Crawl Classics rules. We will be getting into Mutant Crawl Classics eventually.
I want to talk about that. And
again, you'll notice they're all just homages to Gamma World, so why don't we just talk about Gamma World the whole time?
Exactly. So, all right. So we're going to talk about that. I don't want to break my habit of not talking about stuff and leaving it for the off-topic show, but I'll only talk about them in one sentence each. The Thunder the Barbarian Blu-ray is now out. It's remastered, and because I got the original DVDs when they WB Games issued them on demand, which was great, but they came out with a remastered Blu-ray version, which it's not like, oh my God, it's 4K Hollywood, but it does look better. So that was an improvement, and pre-orders for the Fallout RPG are on Modiphius's website. So a couple of quick things, and then we're going to move on. So Thom was, like I said, we talked to Thom a couple of years ago when Gamazine 1 came out. Since then, he's put 2 more Gamazines out. Thom also has 3 currently Gamma World First Edition specific adventures. He has a 4th one that is post-apocalyptic, not Gamma World, but you could adapt it pretty easily. We have reviewed two of those mod adventures on the show, which was Into the Wreckage and A Dish That Serves No One. There was one that came out after that called The Last Vestige of Hope. So we'll get Thom to talk about that a little bit because we haven't read through it in detail. And we'll talk a little bit about the Gamazines.
I only just bought it before the show when I found out it was out. Oh my God, I've missed something. That button on Drive-Thru RPG has been pushed.
Excellent. That button RPG is broken. But you know what? Here's the thing. I want to bring it up before I forget, is because I mentioned Bill Barsh is doing Gamma X, and I read the interview in that, and like Scott had mentioned, that a lot of these games are homages to Gamma World, like MCC, even Mutant Year Zero, which was originally came out in 1985, which was a Gamma World. So a lot of this stuff is all just
Darwin's World, right?
Darwin's World, which was a D21 D20 which came out in the 2000s, and I think eventually they did upgrade their stuff to 3.5. So everything's kind of held up to it's held up against Gamma World as its not its standard, but you know what I'm talking. Sometimes words escape me. So. But we mentioned Bill. He's coming out with Gamma X, which is a Gamma World retro clone. So, and how he mentioned he's going to be using the BX rules for it, which is interesting because that's now going to constitute having levels,
classes,
classes and levels, which I always find that interesting for the Gamma World game because First edition didn't have it. Second edition did. Third edition didn't have it. But we did start classes in fourth edition Gamma World. So fourth edition Gamma World had classes, not levels though. Wait, or did it have levels? I don't think so. I think it just had classes. It had like a scout, and it had just a couple of rudimentary classes. And as a side note, the fourth edition Gamma World system was kind of a proto D20 system. Like if you look at those rules, it was definitely a proto D20 system. Well, it's all D20, not really, but the actual D20 rule set, it was kind of a prototype for that. Agreed. So I find it interesting that he's going that route of having classes and levels because I think Gamma World doesn't lend to it as the traditional system doesn't lend to it very well, because why would I want to start off with a first level mutant with very little hit points that's going to get wiped out when it runs into the death machine immediately? Mm-hmm. Well, even other first, that would happen, but
Gamma World was never balanced. I guess that's the one thing that I guess was almost that almost appealed to a lot of us, was the idea that welcome to Gamma World. It's not encounters are not balanced. You will run into things that will completely outclass you. You may learn the hard way which things you should have attacked and which ones you shouldn't have. And that was always sort of fascinating to me, that it kept the world dangerous. Gamma World was always sort of funny and dangerous, or at least, satirical and sort of a comment. There was a lot of satire in the Apocalypse and commentary on Monolith, but it was mostly dangerous. Gamma World was one of the games that killed the shit out of you more than almost any other game I can think of starting out.
I also think that Jim Ward, really took a lot of those comments from Gygax, who was playing in his games, to heart when he said, I want it to be deadly, I want it to be tough. Because what did Gygax do in his adventures? It was basically like, if you go left, it's a kobold. If you go right, it's a red dragon. Oh, well, you made a bad choice, right? And I think Gamma World lends itself to that, especially when you talk about, poison and radiation. It's just the great equalizer. Everybody gets wiped out. So it's, you make bad choices and you die. In newer games, not so much. And I think that's the first edition of Gamma World really appeals because of that reason. It is just bad choices lend to death. So.
Yep. And it looks like you have a lot of hit points at the beginning, but boy, they go away fast.
Oh yeah.
It's all very good point. But I think I don't know how Bill's going to do the system, but starting off at low hit points is really, really tough. I mean,
let me assure you that
it's
is
a
all
tough.
over. We'll be talking about that with Mutant Crawl Classics. They're absolutely doing levels and classes, and Mutant is a class. And oh yeah, the world eats you like popcorn shrimp. But again, they have a different answer for that problem. We'll get into it in an episode, but yeah, it's
Well, let's not forget also that when we say BX, we're talking about Pace Setters BX, not Moldvay BX. Right? We're talking about Pace Setters BX. So Pace Setter came out with their box set, which is BX, which is a clone and a redo of original BX, Moldvay Marsh, and then now they're going to put Gamma X on top of that platform, so it's going to mirror that platform. So they did make some changes from traditional BX with their BX system, you'll see that probably in the Gamma X piece. But yeah, I think it's going to be low hit points. It's going to be Thaco. It's going to be all that stuff, I think.
Interesting. But we'll definitely. But see, that gave me some things to talk to. I said I got to reach out to Bill. So.
Well, I'm going to see him next month at North Texas, and I'm going to hope. I'm trying to convince him to give me some really early insight into some of the stuff that he's got written that he's running, because he's running a Gamma X game there as a prototype, just to make a play test basically. So I'm hoping that I can sit with him, since I just did a huge book for him, 105,000 word book for him. I'm hoping that he's gonna let me look at his notes for Gamma X.
Nice. Oh, because I remember him originally saying, I guess that he pushed out the date a little bit. He was going to launch it on a Kickstarter like in May, but I guess that's not going to happen.
No, it's just not ready. I tried to actually get a preview copy to review actually in Gamazine 3, and he's like, no, it's nowhere near ready. So we'll have to wait.
Okay.
Maybe Gamazine 4 might be in that one.
Excellent.
Cool. But I'll still reach out to him just to kind of put the bug in his ear about that, because I backed their recent project for that they're doing right now with the counter creation.
Yep.
Book.
It's an excellent book.
Yeah, because I heard they had his son on Tankar's Tavern, and they were talking to him about that, and I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. So, not that I play anything anymore, but like I like to have these things and read them. It's like I got that kind of disease, So
yeah, that reference material stuff is good.
But good stuff. So, all right, cool, very good. All right, so like we said, you've had 2 zines come out since the first one. So it seems to be so. I guess the format and the content and the just the whole concept of it is doing okay for you, that you're continuing to put zines out.
Yeah, I mean, I've had a couple of different zine runs. I've had the Back to Basics and then the Gamazine one, and I even though I've sold like 1,000 copies of Back to Basics issue 1, I've gotten more chatter from people about Gamazine. I have more rabid people that just constantly email me and go, "When's the next one?" So it's funny. I had less backers in my projects, but more chatter about wanting the next one. So which is really cool. And there's definitely a community out there that needs more of this work. And for me, Gamma World is right there, neck and neck with BX as far as my favorite system. So I'm always going to write for Gamma World until Wizards comes and shuts me down. I'm going to keep doing it. So
good.
Well, because here's the thing, and I think there's more chatter because there is very little Gamma World stuff out there. So you're like one of the only dudes doing anything with it, whereas there is so much BX stuff out there.
Right. Yeah, and Gamazine, if you look at Gamazine 3, like I think I increased the page count by some stupid number. I mean, it's like I don't know. I think I doubled the second copy. So I got 3 adventures in it. There's tons of material. I get a lot of people who want to submit stuff. Some of the stuff that they submit is not printable, unfortunately. but I always encourage people, if they've got some good material, I'll look at it at least. And actually, I had a gentleman reach out to me recently that wants me to publish his Gamma World like material. It's a mutation book, which is really cool for all different mutations, plants, animals, and humanoids. It just didn't fit into my my workload for the next 16, 18 months. So I pushed him towards Bill Barsh and said, your work is really good, but maybe Bill wants to do it for Gamma X. So we'll see. So I get a lot of submissions, including somebody on this show.
I know.
Last one.
Yes,
Yes,
I'm a fan. I'm your biggest fan. So yes,
I have a couple of things in the latest issue of Gamazine. It's not a lot, but it's just
got some weapons.
Couple of few weapons. One was even though there's already 2 vibro weapons out there, bladed weapons out there, it's just like, but nobody's done a sword. So I just broke down the stats and did a sword. So there's goes Thunder. You want to be Thundar? Just a vibro blade. It's kind of short. It's not going to do the job. You need a vibro sword. You need something long and heavy duty.
Right.
And of course I scaled it. It does a little bit proportionally more damage too, but it also doesn't last as long because it drains more of a battery. So, did a little work on that.
It just wouldn't be right to swing a weapon as short as the standard vibro blade while yelling devil dogs or demon dogs. It just doesn't seem right. You need something with a reach.
Yeah, your submission was good because I was actually building out the weapon chapter that was going to be a bunch of homemade weapons that you just make from different parts of pieces of things. So that might make its way into Gamazine 4 instead. But it's basically just like
how much damage from a stop sign that's made out of Duralloy, a Duralloy stop sign you smash somebody with.
Exactly. That's where I was going with that chapter. But then, of course, I get a great submission. I'm like, no, I'll use this instead.
Oh, nice.
Well, one of the nice things about, not nice things, one of the standard, very player character things about Gamma World is the plethora of weapons that have come out over the years. And I'm always happy to reach into other editions to pull out some of the weapons to use even in earlier edition games. But I love that the built-in, at least as a fan of the original Social Wars idea, I love the idea that there's all these different types of weapons because there's this constant political warfare that is constant leading to new and sneakier and more insidious or more terror-based weapons. So you do have this option for having absolutely ghastly high-tech weapons that do just obscene the kind of weapons you'd only see in 40K, but they have a place in Gamma World because you lived in a your ancients have a disintegrating, militia-based, almost Lebanon in the 80s style civilization going down the drain one block at a time as they ruin each other, killing each other off with stuff they've cooked up in each other's basements, like some sort of Judge Dredd block war gone mad,
Yeah. And what's funny is that it's speaking on, touching on weapons one more time, it's actually been the most negative feedback I've got was about weapons because a couple of my adventures, I throw a couple of, modern day, firearms in just for something different, right? Like a sawed-off shotgun or a revolver. And I get a little chatter that says, hey, these wouldn't exist at this point. It's so many years later. And I'm like, but why not? Why not throw it in there for something different? Something fun.
It's in Legion of Gold.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Hell, it's in the original artifacts tables in the first book, which always struck. And I admit that as a gamer, I was like, why are there shotgun shells? My answer is that clearly somebody after the apocalypse figured out that, black powder go boom. We got a couple hundred years after the apocalypse there. Why couldn't somebody have gone back and said, well, we're not going to be building any lasers anytime soon, but I hear that if you take a tube, like a big bamboo tube, and you wrap it in rope, and then you stick a bunch of diamonds and sulfur in it, you can blow up the Gorn. Or I guess the sleeth.
I was going to say, okay, Kirk.
Shoot the sleeth with it. I guess.
Well, you also have that in between area between like you're beating it with rocks and sticks, and you're doing like 8d6 with a laser rifle. And now you got something in the middle that sort of like levels the playing field a little bit. So
exactly.
And like I said, they had gunpowder firearm rules in GW1 in the Legion of Gold. And they had rules as like, hey, you're going to have a certain percentage that aren't going to be good. And, so they kind of covered that already. And speaking of improvised weapons, when you talk about the signs and stuff, what made me think of is I had played, again, back in high school, we had played through the Mind Masters, which was, I'm going to say that was GW4, right? Because the Cleansing Wars of Gretic Blackhand was 3, and I think Mind Masters was GW4. So, if you're not familiar with the Mind Masters, basically it was a
Asylum.
it was like an asylum retreat, to help people. So, in there they had like sports, like indoor sports, and they had something with it was like a grab ball game where you put like in this suit, and it had like, it was kind of like gamble. It was like high tech highlight.
Oh no, high tech rollerball. It was like zero.
No. It was still like, it was still in a contained area like racquetball or highlight.
Not like,
but it had a thing where one end catches the ball and it like went through the back and it shot out again the other side. So we had come across this in the exercise area, and it's like, I was like, how can we use this to do damage? Because these balls aren't going to do any damage. So what I came up with, and the DM allowed it, was we found dumbbells. So we found dumbbells, and it's got weight on the end, so we were able to crack off the ends of the dumbbells because the damage was based on the weight of the projectile. So we were able to break it off. There's a smaller piece that could go into the tube and shoot out, and we were able to do damage with that.
I've put a lot of things, Jared. I've put a lot of things in my what's the blower weapon from Fallout?
Yeah,
the junk.
Yeah, the junk weapon. That's the leaf blower.
The junk launcher. Yeah.
Dumbbells. I hadn't thought of dumbbells. I have to admit that's awful.
Well, yeah. If you get like
they probably do damage.
Well, you get these like hand weights. You get these ones that are like 25 pounds. You lob one side of it off. It's probably it's not exactly going to be half, but it could wind up being 10 pounds. You get that going at a high velocity. That's going to do some damn damage.
Ouch. Yep.
So, all right. So, so the Gamazine, just because I want don't want people to be aware of it. So I know we talked about it a lot. The first edition. Anything special, anything standoutish about 2 and 3, and then also what are your plans for doing any more?
Yeah, so my goal, like it was with the Back to Basics fanzine run, was to always try to, as long as they were successful, I would try to continue to either match the size or make them bigger. Well, usually I make them a little bit bigger each time. So you'll see that 2 was bigger than 1, and 3 is much bigger than 2. I added an extra adventure. I thickened up the short story that I've been writing. The second one started a new short story in addition, and it got a lot of mixed reviews, so I stopped it because it wasn't really post-apocalyptic. It was more futuristic, sort of utopian Earth. But so I basically killed that off and just lengthened the short story in Gamazine 3. But mostly it's about adventures, honestly. Like, I like having the chapters for a new monster and a new chapter for weapons, etc. I moved away from the artifact charts in 2 to 3 to have search tables. I wanted to mix it up a little bit. So there's some search tables. I love search tables. They're one of my favorite things. You'll see those in the back of a couple of my adventure books, actually, where there's search tables in the back. I'll probably, do something like that again. With search tables and multiple adventures, because again, the best thing to have is a new adventure for your players. So I'll continue to do that. I thought about mixing it up. I thought about getting away from the monster chapter and just embedding new monsters in the adventures when they pop up.
Mm-hmm.
But my editor is mad at me for saying that. He says, no, don't do that. So I may keep the monster chapter. And just continue to do the things that are bringing me some success, which is this layout and format. Whether there's going to be new classes, I don't know, because I make those. Obviously, those are optional, but I like an optional section. So maybe an optional. Maybe I've got a couple ideas for the next one. I've been chatting about optional saving throws and optional mutation use rules that are sort of loose and ambiguous in first edition, and trying to tighten up some things there, give people some options and some ideas. So there might be some new sections. I don't know if I'll replace anything, but at least maybe a new section on some stuff. But again, this thing's like 36 pages or something. Can't even read it. I have my glasses on, but yeah, it's like 30 something pages. I'll probably do the same size again, and probably Gamazine will probably be November or December. Usually do it during the first week of Zine Quest, but I think I'm going to pull it off earlier just to get it out there before people get inundated with everybody's latest idea. So,
oh, cool. But no, actually, your Gamma World zines over 50 pages. So,
oh, are they? Okay.
Yeah.
I can't even read it. I just generate work and just throw it in a book and it's done.
That's just very good. But yeah, and the idea of the classes is interesting because, like I said, they started doing classes in 4th edition. But I still don't know how I feel about it. It's like because I like the free form of being able to do whatever.
Right.
But but then again, do you need to have some kind of structure to people? Because a lot of it, I come from the the D&D traditions. Like, here's your class, or here's your skill sets. Especially now in more modern editions, there's a lot of skills and this and that. So it's like, well, does that define your character, or does your role playing define your character? It's like, do I need a class, especially for like Gamma World? Because because it's a classless system. But it's like, will classes add anything? That's always a good debate. It's like, I'm not sure where I stand on that. Right now. But
I mean, I like the idea that if you pitch a good idea to your GM and he or she agrees, I think it's worth trying out. And I've given a couple optional classes. I've got the Wasteland Blacksmith, and I've got this artifact, fixer creator kind of class, and they're neat. And the latest one I have basically the Wasteland Ghoul, which is obviously a Fallout reference. And basically just, we have this, you're basically just more resistant to radiation. Nothing spectacular, nothing else that's, that makes you play a certain way, but gives you some additional abilities where, you get into some rough territory. Because I always found that intensity 18 radiation was just everyone just walks away. They're like, no, we're not doing it. We're all going to die. So we can do it, right? So having a class of a Wasteland Ghoul that's, even the low level radiation actually heals them, and high radiation they're resistant to, opens up some interesting capabilities of being able to dive into that spot where you normally would just walk away. So it just adds a little wrinkle, optional of course, because it's Gamma World. So,
but it's interesting, yeah, because you get those hot spots which could be laden with treasure, but you can't get to it.
Right.
But now you might be able to get to it, so that could be. That could be a whole adventure of, teaming up with a Wasteland Ghoul and getting to that spot that you couldn't get to because it's too dangerous.
Right. Actually, that's one of the adventures in the book of Gamazine 3 is that you go into a plant that was a chemical plant that's been just, spilled out, and there's Wasteland Ghouls in there trying to take some of the chemicals back to their village, and they're immune to it. But when you go in there, you're taking a little bit of a beating. It's not high intensity, but it's enough to make you pause. And, and it's kind of a fun thing where you run into the race, sort of a race/species, also a class. So it makes it interesting. Just a little wrinkle.
I'll tell you, I was very happy with the scenario in, I guess it's 2, the Millionaire's Vault, or the.
Oh yeah.
I really like the idea of not every underground, not everything is it was just a different kind of. Shelter crawl, or whatever we're going to call it, when you go digging around in the ancients stuff, because it wasn't the standard full of survival stuff. It was it's all their toys, it's all the things that they've put aside, and I just thought it was cool because it wasn't the standard thing. It wasn't a military place, or it wasn't a civil defense, but and it wasn't even strictly for human survival. It was for stuff,
right?
Which, with the right money, of course, there would be vaults like that as people,
right,
hide their things. I am trying for the life of me to remember where I have seen something like that, but I suppose what I'm imagining, or when my brain is ricocheting off of, is the Ark of the Art from the Ark of the Arts from that British apocalypse film where nobody's given birth. It's not the Fisher King, but we'll edit this later so we don't sound so stupid.
Dude,
Children of Men. Children of Men.
Dude, I did a lot of editing. I did a lot of editing on the last episode, and
you don't want to. We'll sound stupid. That's
why I don't. That's why I say, you know what? I don't do editing, because to edit that hour show probably took me 3 hours or more, and I'm like, you know what? I'm not doing this anymore. I'm just going to cut the beginning, the front, and the end to make it clean. Done.
Okay. Well, we got the Children of Men, but that's part of what I am remembering. Yeah. But I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking of something from the Ravagers with from the 70s. I can't remember, but the idea of a rich person's bunker that's actually full of their art and their toys and their favorite car and stuff. That was just really cool. I really liked it.
Yeah, that idea came to me when I was looking at, like obviously there's all these doomsday preppers and such, and I was thinking, some people are stocking up on whiskey and bullets, and some people might be putting away their family heirlooms and their the prized possessions, like their convertible Corvette, and they want to bury it in a vault somewhere. I mean, the people are odd and strange and want to preserve whatever they want to preserve, and that's where that came from.
Yeah, I particularly like that because it was off the standard. It was off the standard deviation of what I expected. Yeah. Bandit King's Palace, I expect some Bandit Kings. I expect some terrible chemical plants filled with poisons. But yeah, that was an interesting treasure trove.
Yeah,
it was very.
It was cool. a fun one to write for sure.
The first, I've read the first two scenarios you put out, things that you ran at North Texas, both. As far as I'm concerned, really super cool dungeon crawls that involve just really good uses of the original background of Gamma World. Particularly the one with the you're exploring the Apocalypse base, or outpost or whatever it is. But what are the two? You got one that's out that I just bought and haven't read yet, and you got one that's coming up. Can you tell us a little bit about what you got planned for those?
Yeah, sure. Last Vestige of Hope, which came out last year, was inspired by the series Snowpiercer.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, there's if you look at the front cover of that, basically looks like there's a train on rails, and basically there's a supply train that's still running to this day on this track, and everyone theorizes that it's full of supplies. Well, obviously, it's not going to be full of supplies because most of those supplies have spoiled, although there are some interesting bits in there that you can get. It's a short train. It was used to shuttle supplies up to a larger facility at the top of a mountain, which has now pretty much been, pretty much cleaned out, although there's some interesting things in there. But it's really a 3-part adventure. It's getting to the place where you can get to the train, which is held by cannibal bandits. Then there is the train itself, and then if you can figure out how to get off the train that doesn't stop moving, so it means jumping or doing something crazy to get off, you can find the facility, which is, it's not big, but it was once a huge storehouse of supply goods for the military that has been since cleaned out. But there are some things to glean from it. So it's really a 3-part. I ran it in North Texas. I was surprised that the playtest group got mired in diplomacy with the cannibals, which I thought was hysterical. And then when we got to the train, they were like...
Were they bargaining which players that they would give up for the stew pot? I mean...
No, they just...
If we give you Bob to eat, he's pretty meaty, you could...
I mean, you also know that, if you get a D&D player to play Gamma World, it's a whole different animal, right? So these guys came in, guns a-blasting through the front door, and the bandits were just picking them off, and they finally tried to back into some diplomacy to try to get out of it, and then there was obviously some treachery and some... false promises, and they were able to eradicate the bandits at last. And then they were
Nobody
Then they
lies
were
like their characters.
No.
Player characters lie like
Oh yeah,
robots.
they're worse than the foes in the adventure generally. And then they had to find the parts to get the train running again, or the gondola that takes you up to the train. So I think you can see that in the picture of the cover. It's a gondola that takes you up to a platform where you can actually jump on the train as it flies by, which is a real fun time for really low dex characters. And then you work your way through this running train. And if you're not careful, you actually blow the train off the tracks because if you fail some artifact checks, you actually ruin the train, which is even more fun. And if you can survive that, obviously you get to the facility. So it's like a good chunky 3 parts, section.
Oh,
that has a lot of different stuff in it. So
I'm digging it already because I love the idea of like, wow, why hasn't it been looted? Because it's never stops going more than 100 kilometers an hour or whatever.
Right, it's ripping around the tracks, and you got to figure out how to get on. Now, there's ways to slow it down. There's ways to make the leap or what have you, but it's not easy. So it's a fun time. So that's the one that came out last year, which was play tested in 2018, and then in 2019 I play tested an adventure called Batteries Low Getting Dark, which is basically we know that where that comes from, but it's not like that in the adventure. It's just a nice title to use. And it's basically a energy cell facility that's been abandoned because it doesn't have its atomic batteries to run the mainframe. So, but if you're willing to risk it and delve in deep underneath and brave the radiation, you can find the batteries to plug into the mainframe and get the whole facility running, including robotics that are actually making energy cells from these huge solar panels on the roof. So it is one of those things where it's like, oh shit, we suddenly have all of this wealth. We have all of these energy cells that we can fill. But what does that mean? That means everybody's going to come to you and try to take it away. So you're going to you have it, but how long can you hold it?
Yeah. Did you remember to bring an army? Because the guys who are coming, they did remember to bring an army.
Right. So once you find it and get it started, then people find out obviously that you're able to create energy or solar cells and energy cells, and they're going to want to take it from you. So it's a very interesting, like, hey, this is a great place to set up base camp now because we've got endless supplies. Well, you don't, because obviously you run out of material eventually, but you can basically recharge your cells constantly, but it's going to get taken from you. So it's one of those things that's like nice to have it for a while, but then you have to give it up eventually. Sort of like reminds me of like the prison in Walking Dead, where it's like, yeah, it's a great place for now, but then it's going to eventually be overrun. You got to get out of there. So it's a cool thing. It's got some interesting foes in the basement, a lot of robots, of course, because that's my favorite thing, sentry bots and such. And it's got a cool reward. If you can pull it off, it's got some really cool rewards for you, but how long do you want to stay is the question. So that'll be out this summer. Like I said, I've got the guy who did Scavenge the Sands cover, Brian Thomas, also known as Brian Glad Thomas. He's signed up to do the cover for this one. Mm-hmm. And I've got 5 or 6 people that I've used before for other books that are already signed up to do interior work. So we got people who are anxious to do the artwork, and I've already written it. It just needs to be put in digital form and then get the maps and art done and get it edited, obviously. It's going to be probably between 28 32 pages, my normal size book, black and white digest, of course, to follow the same format. And like I said, it'll be out this summer. Probably late summer, but summer. You mentioned Scavengers of the Sands, not Gamma World, but post-apocalyptic, correct? That is correct.
Tell our listeners about that.
Scavengers of the Sands was built with a system that I started writing back probably, 10 years ago, called SRS, which is Simple Role-Playing System, D6 system. And I wanted to have a kind of a sci-fi / post-apocalyptic variant to the fantasy rules. So I built that, and I play tested it, and people liked it. It was a simple system to use, like it was designed, but I didn't get really the draw that I really was hoping for with it. So I sort of abandoned the system in favor of a new system that I've been writing for the last 3 years. Part of it is there's a strip mall. That you just basically it's a crawl.
You froze for a second, so
okay.
We didn't get it. So just back up. You were saying just back up a couple sentences.
You abandoned this. You worked on it for the new system you've been working on for about 3 years.
Okay, yeah, and So the SRS system didn't really take off as well as I hoped. But I still wanted to write something that was, post-apocalyptic. So we did that, and it takes place really in a wasteland where you come across a strip mall. So there's like all these different stores and stuff that you can go into, and there's of course scavengers and giant scorpions and such. And then you come across a building that's poking out of the sand. Really ends up being the top floor of a high rise. So you delve in, and there's like office environments and also really cool search tables to like glean little parts and stuff. And then the best part of it actually is not so much the encounter base, but if you get to the basement, you find, I wrote it like an 18 or 20 page log that goes with it, where you can actually read people who were in the last days of the apocalypse waiting in the basement to be told they could leave, and then being sealed in there and watching all the people in their group just diminish and die. And you're reading this log from this one guy who's trying to figure out how to get out and he can't. And it's a horrifying, sad log, but it was fun to write as an aside to the book. It's a delve. But
you have on more than one occasion brought the inexorable doom to the guys in the high-tech facility or the sealed bunker or we're all safe in here and the apocalypse missed us and oops, we can't get out. It always reminds me of the civil defense officials who all die horribly in threads, where they're in the underground command center that is buried by most of downtown having been flattened.
Right.
And, they're on the radio and they're on the phone and talking to, but at some point, the rescue crews dig that section out and they've all died in the command center.
Yeah.
Having been protected and lucky because they got to be in a shelter,
Right. Yeah. There's nothing. I don't write anything, regardless of the genre. I don't write anything that ends well ever. I always have either a twist or a disappointment at the end, because I feel like that's sort of the reality of it, right? So especially in post-apocalyptic, it's like, yep, we just found this treasure trove. Nope, it's empty. Or, oh, we found this place, but now we can't get out. How do we get out? So I like doing that because it just adds more.
We found the actual treasure. Now it's the battle of the five armies, because everybody. Right. Who didn't do the hard work of actually taking the facility is going to do the easy work of killing a bunch of player characters.
Oh, right. Yeah. Because there was this one campaign that I was in. Well, it wasn't the last time I played Gamma World, but it was it was the last run of games we played with this one character that I had. The group had gotten into an installation. We had got an active cybernetic installation. So we were in this place, and we got cordoned off. I don't remember if we got captured. I don't remember how. It's like 40 years ago almost. But I was like, we got trapped in this place, and we couldn't get out. Like the section, we couldn't figure out how to get out. Like we were trapped in these big doors. I mean, we tried everything from like the big hydraulic doors. We were able to get into them and drain the hydraulics to open the doors, and but then we were just like it's stuck in another area. It's like we just couldn't, and we never wound up playing that for whatever reason. We never planned on playing that game again. So basically, those characters just died in that facility. Apparently,
they're still there.
Right,
they're bones.
No. That's realistic. It's like you're not you can't always get out of something that you get into.
The thing you said something earlier about Cannibal Bandits, and I want to take a slight detour on that, because I have been trying to find a passage in one of my old editions of Gamma World. I could have sworn it's not first edition; it's either second or third or whatever, where there was something in Gamma World discussing, we seem to have a whole ton of uplifted animal races and things, and the list of what counts as there's a lot more sentience on the planet than there were previously. So the section of the book was talking about, apparently the general idea was that people aren't as squidgy about eating another sentient as long as they aren't your sentience, that,
Right.
the batters will eat the humans, even though they can both speak whatever, English leftover is in or patois or pidgin English is currently in America, or mutants will eat pure strains, or humans will eat Orleans, because what the hell, they're not us, so they got two heads, they can't be us. And I don't know if either one of you guys remember reading that
No,
in a section about survival or travel, or I don't
does
know if it
not
was
does
that
not ring
not
a
ringing
bell
a
at
bell?
all.
Yeah,
No.
maybe. See, this is clearly an article I need to write on for your next Gamma
Sure.
series. Who eats who in Gamma World? Hot cuisine in America.
Well, and
I think the title "Who Eats Who" is probably just enough to really get people to go, "What is this?"
well, what was the Gamma? What was the short story in Dragon magazine? Scott, you and I have talked about that. Everybody eats everybody on Sunday's Planet. Was that what that
Yes,
was?
yes,
Yeah.
yes. There was a science fiction story that was set on an alien world or something. Everybody eats everybody on Sunday's Planet. The other thing is, it reminds me of uh, Mutant World. It's just sort of right. It reminds me of the whole Richard Corbin Mutant World, where
Oh yeah.
just about every story in Mutant World was just a variant on the coyote chasing the Roadrunner,
Right.
trying to eat him, and then ending up very badly in various horrendous ways, where
Yeah.
the food eats, the the classic bit from Mutant World, where the egg they capture turns out to be some sort of monster that hatches and eats them, rather than them having an omelet, which, of
Yeah.
course, if you're
Now,
gonna if you're gonna grim up your Gamma World, that would be certainly one way to do it.
Sure.
Scott, you were mentioning. You mentioned your Gamma World group posts about the shorts scenarios.
Oh
So
yeah.
were you thinking about submitting the Android scenario that I inspired you for to Tom?
Yes, you did. I was wrestling around with that, and it was your suggestion of androids make everything better. I think was your suggestion. So you need androids in the scenario. Yeah, it's a thing I posted as a PDF file to the Facebook Gamma World page. The enemy of my enemy's enemy, where you can get into the player characters can get into a firefight between two groups and help one side out of the other, and there's two different endings depending on which side you help. And depending on which side you help, you could get another mission out of it, where it's uh, friends of entropy fighting some created. If you help the created, mistaking them for humans or something, they will eventually, they will be like, well, we want your help rescuing the husk of a android, thinker android, out of a out of an archivist temple. They've got a deactivated thinker android, and we lost our thinker, and our thinker has our mission parameters on it. We don't know it because it's secret, but we've got its CPU. But it's too big to put in a warrior, and it's too big to put in a worker. So we need an actual thinker android to figure out what our mission was, or our mission is scrubbed. So since the archivists have enhanced scent abilities and can smell an android sneaking into their village, we want you to go in and get our thinker out. And here you can take our maintenance robot with you as an offering for their temple. We'll show you how to turn it on and turn it off, so you can turn the maintenance robot on, and it will grab the thinker that's allegedly in this temple and escape with it. And we'll give you some extra weapons so you can loot the temple and things like that. Of course, I'm not. I can't remember if I included it or not. But one of my thoughts was, once the players actually return a thinker android to the created, and they put the new CPU in, and tell the thinker, "Hey, listen, you were out for a while. You were damaged, and now we've got you in a new body, and we got some other mutants and humans to help us get you this body." The first thing the thinker says is, "Well, they're a security risk. You have to go immediately eliminate them." So there's
Of
just no
course.
way anyone's going to be your friend in the scenario. It's just one group screwing you over, and using you for their ends, and then, oh wait, even after you've worked a deal and held up your end of the bargain. There's always one last betrayal, you know.
Yeah, that's right up my alley. I love that.
Yeah, I gave Scott the seed, but he totally did the whole thing because he was like, it's like I'm looking for an idea, and then I was like, well, what about when I because for some reason I had androids on the brain, and what about a scenario where androids are trying to get another, I gave him like the base seed, and he's like, oh, that's great, and then he just ran with it.
It was especially the thing about androids that are mistaken for humans, and I just love the idea of the damaged androids who cannot repair their damaged parts, damaged skin or whatever, wrapping that injury up or that damage up with bandages like it's a real wound to cover it up. You know what I mean? And then the eye patch comes off and it's a big metallic socket or whatever. But androids trying to pass as humans is sort of the thing that you came in with, and I just ran with it from there. And I don't know why that particularly worked for me. I'm never quite sure what to do with. I like androids in Gamma World, but I'm not quite sure how to define them. Are they going to be filled with milk like Bishop and Ash from the Aliens movies? Or are they going to be just, made out of rubber like Yul Brynner from Westworld with just metal inside, or are they going to be closer to Arnold in the Terminator films where there's a bunch of meat, on top of a metal frame? Which kind of android am I going to go with? Or am I going to go with the Fallout 4 synths where they're indistinguishable from meat, but they're absolutely artificially created? Something more like Roy Batty. Is Roy Batty an android? I mean, no, he's not mechanical. He's absolutely, made out of meat, but, and is indistinguishable for a human, but he's just enhanced, right? So trying to layer, I guess what that means is you just got a lot of options for your androids. You can go with, the ones that are filled with skim milk, like Lance Henriksen and Ian Holm. Those ones are like an early model or something. Or maybe the Yul Brynner is the early model. Like you never find those except in third world shitholes like, Ecuador with its androids,
Right. Are they like the Blade Runner kind,
Yeah. So, but I do like me some androids. I guess particularly when they can't fix themselves. That's always super creepy that they're, they can wander around with their arm tagged off, yet still be perfectly functional, as long as they wrap it up in a bandage, maybe they pass as human. But anyways, yes. So I thank you, Jared. That it took just a few minutes with you to get that fixed. I often get stuck on stuff like that, and have to have somebody. Frank Fry did it for me the last time. I was writing some stuff for Twilight 2000, and I was stalled, so I just gave Frank a call, and he had all the damn answers. So
sometimes you just got to bounce something off somebody, and you're good.
Yeah, I always just to touch briefly with the androids. My Gamma World vision of them was always that they were still mechanical, but they were just kind of in the shape of a human. They had metal skin because, well, if you look at like the Mind Masters, they had this mesh, like chainmail type skin to make them look more human because they were just pure metal. Like I see them with a metal outside, just being like a metal shell with mechanics in them. No living organic liquid. The only liquid may be like hydraulics or something. That's always my vision of them.
Yes,
just
but
pure mechanical.
But still designed to look human, mechanical, but designed to look human. That's still kind of what was going on with Bishop and Ash from Aliens. Ridley Scott decided to freak us out by, instead of having wires and diodes like Yul Brynner, to have all this fucking gross shit fly out all over the place when they start beating Ian Holm to death with a fire extinguisher.
Bladders and tubes and liquids, but they're not as mechanical. I'm more mechanical. Like they don't have flesh, steel. They're basically a robot. But they're they look like humans. Kind of like they're kind of a I don't know, Mr. Roboto looking. They're obviously a robot,
you want
but
them
human
less
clones.
human than that, like the androids from the was it the second edition Gamma World, where they don't have faces, which always
Oh, I love those. I love that interpretation of
really
them. Yeah.
that always freaked me out. I mean, I get part of it because we've learned that the uncanny valley makes humans want to smash shit. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
Yeah, humans when they try and make the I don't know the weird robot head or the sex doll or whatever, whenever they try to make it look more human, all it does is make me want to set it on fire. If it just had like a speaker instead of a mouth that moved, just a speaker and camera eyes, it'd be like, okay, it's an appliance and I'm fine. But when it's got it's got irises and it's got uh, human-like features, and it moves its mouth to talk, or does one of those horrible smiles that they make them do every once in a while. Look, this is my disarming robot smile, and I'm just like, no. It looks like it's baring its teeth for an attack.
So you want it to look like remember in the 70s when you had the $6 Million Man action figures out? He had an enemy. I don't remember his name, but he was an android, and like his face, the action figure, his face came off, and he just had the two eyes and stuff. You like him? You want him to look like, here's the speaker where his mouth is, here's the red eyes, no face, no.
Well, yes, actually, it would be. Again, the thing that I am most afraid of in the world are clowns, and it's because clowns don't quite look human. You know what I mean? There's this thing where they are in the uncanny valley, where they've done things with makeup to change the shape of their heads and change the shape of their faces. So they freak me the fuck out because they're just not quite right. Same thing with the androids. These early robot prostheses and things that they show at electronics shows that are supposed to be showing us how well we're doing in advancing the technology. They're just creepy as hell to me. They're just super creepy. I would something that just looked like one of those silver girls you'd find on the front of Heavy Metal magazine would be less disconcerting.
Because you can pick them out. You know what it is.
Yes. Bingo. Bingo, Tom. If they look like us, they're just going to sneak up on us. Right. That's what they're going to do.
Now, I thought of while we were talking is because we talked about first edition Gamma World, how many modules were out, because there was officially, well, quote unquote, officially, you had GW1, which was Legion of Gold. You have Thom and Fargo with his GW2, and then you had the mini adventure in the referee screen. Now, the other mini adventure, which I still consider a published adventure because it was in Dragon 52, which came out, that was somewhere, 80, 81? The Cavern of the Subtrain. You can't forget about the Cavern of the Subtrain. That was a published mini adventure. It was a kind of a intro scenario coming of age thing like Famine and Fargo, which probably came out around the same time. But I always loved reading. Remember reading the Cavern of the Subtrain. I was like, oh, this is great. Because it was another adventure to read. It was a mini adventure. So if it was in Dragon back then, to me that's an official adventure.
All right. Well, that means at this point they're tied with Tom. TSR with first edition is tied with Tom.
Yeah.
But we'll fix that. We'll write. He'll write more.
Oh yeah, I plan on it.
Right. Want all you want because Tom will write more. I guess. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah.
Well, again, Game World always will have that place in my heart because it was even though it was the second role-playing game I ever played, it was the first I ever purchased because I was given the box set from a friend for D&D. So for me, it's super special because I still have that actual box set. So
it was the first game that said you don't have to be in a 10 by 10 hallway. Was sort of despite the fact that we crawled around a lot of installations. Gamma was the first game that sort of introduced me to the dungeon crawl. Oh, no, sorry, the hex crawl, to getting out in the wilderness and travel from.
Before we got into the expert series where it tried to introduce wilderness stuff, you're right. Gamma World was doing it first, and then we were crawling over broken buildings and through jungles of streets and such. Just loved it.
Yep. I don't remember. I still have my original Gamma World box. I don't have a lot of my other stuff. Like my first role playing game that I got was for Christmas of '82. I got the basic set, the Moldavia one. So that was my first. And then all around the same time, because that was middle of 7th grade for me. So, but coming into 8th grade, into 9th, I got a bunch of other, I don't remember the order. It was probably Gamma World, but then because I had gotten Gamma World, Boot Hill, Top Secret, I'd gotten them all around the same time, so I don't know which one Gamma World was. It was either second or fourth, but I think it was probably the second because I remember Boot Hill. I remember playing with that one a little bit. That had the 2 dice, the white and the pink. The old original, the 7 2 3 5 symmetric dice. Those ones right there. People can't see that, but that's another thing I've been obsessing about lately. Okay, this is how bad I am. There's a guy on Etsy who does replica OSR dice. I can't remember his shop at this time, but I've gotten a set from him because he makes good ones. He makes he makes the replicas of the original sets, and his quality I think his quality is really good. He does a good job. So, but he colors them all the same size. Now after watching watching and reading some stuff from Playing at the World, that I forget the gentleman's name.
John Peterson.
John Peterson. He is the gaming historian. He really has researched and knows his stuff, man. He's really good. He's really good. So he had a thing on 70s dice, and he talked about the different dice and how you distinguish them, and the original dice were a symmetric 7 2 3 5 pattern. So whereas there's a 2 3 and a 5 around the 7, and different dice had different patterns around the 7, but for some reason the 7 was the distinguisher for whatever reason. So he had mentioned that when TSR first started making their own dice in the probably around 80-81, that because they were having trouble getting the dice, those original, so they started making the smaller plastic ones with the solid color that was came with the crayon. Now when they first switched over, they kept the same pattern, the 7 2 3 5 pattern. So I looked through. I don't have any of my original old dice. So the oldest ones I have don't have the 7 2 3 5 pattern. Because they were probably more mid 80s dice. So, so I didn't have any dice to reference it because basically I would have been able to match up exactly. Like, okay, here's that should be the 10, and then I could have followed around and colored the teens and the lower numbers properly from an original die. But I didn't have that, so I had a dice ladder pattern. He had pictures of those dice on there from different angles, and I did some more research on pictures from different angles, and I was able to construct the dice ladder from the pictures and the actual physical die in my hand. Like, okay, well, that's showing this. Okay, so I'm going to put this here, and I color it in. So I had a deconstruction figured all by myself because I didn't have an original 7 2 3 2 3 5 pattern. So I did it from pictures and then just coordinated it, wrote it down, and figured it out from the different angles.
And if you could have only have applied yourself like this, at something that involved making money, you'd be a billionaire by now. I mean, damn, sir.
Yeah, so sometimes when you get on a path, man, you can't get off that path.
Could you, if you had applied this kind of level of detail and work to, I don't know, counterfeiting, for instance? How about counterfeiting U.S. currency? How about that for a plan?
No, it's one of those. If I would have applied myself like that in school, I probably would have graduated top of my class and went to college and probably have a doctorate by now. But you know what? I just, the thing, there's a quote from Calvin and Hobbes something about the only skill sets I have are things that are completely useless or something like that.
All of us have had a touch of that now and again.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that is me. But yeah, so I wasted a lot of time trying to figure out that dice ladder pattern. And it's like, oh, if I only would have just had an original die, and I know you probably got some in your collection, Tom. Probably should have just reached out to you.
Oh my gosh, as you know, I'm a monster collector. I've got like for TSR, I have everything they've made except for one book up to year 2000. That darn book I'll probably never have up the Garden Pass, but
name it. What's the book?
Up the Garden Pass.
Up
ST1.
the Garden Path. I know that book. I mean, I know the title.
Yeah, it's a obscure one from the UK. Pretty much a garbage product, 16 pages, not worth the money it's printed on, but they go for like 8 to 10 grand. So there you go.
What the?
Yeah, I mean, I do have some gems in my collection, and I do have a pretty vast old dice collection as well. So I do have a lot of the dice you're talking about, Jared, and I don't have as many good dice as, let's say, Matt Roberts or some of these other guys, but I do have some really cool old dice, Armory dice and Game Science dice, and a lot of really cool things.
Here's add the level to insanity. So besides writing out the dice ladder on paper, I wrote it out, and then I had to cut it out, and I had to tape a couple sides just so I could keep the shape, so I could match it up with my physical die to make sure I was getting the sides right. This is how insane I am.
Yeah, well, that sometimes, like I said, sometimes when you're on a mission to figure something out, you'll do whatever it takes to get it done. And believe me, I know that level of fanaticism.
Dag nabbit, sir. That is unhealthy.
Oh, it's completely unhealthy. But I had a great time. And I was so proud of myself. And I showed my wife, and I go, listen, I know you're not going to give a crap about this, but I'm telling you what I did anyway.
Sometimes that's what makes a successful marriage. Sometimes you have to listen to your partner tell you about some shit that they did that you don't understand nor care about, but you still listen. That is how you stay undivorced. It's one of those things.
That's exactly correct. Yeah.
All right, so we're going to wrap up here because we try to keep it to an hour now. So because some podcasts, like I said, I like listening to Eric, but they go 2 hours. I can't listen to it's like I think an hour is too long, but I have trouble with 2 hours, man. It's way too long.
Oh yeah.
And we have some old ones that are that long, and I cringe like, oh my god, it's like I can't listen to the whole damn thing, and I can't even listen to it because it's too long. So, all right, so. For those of you who would like to look at Tom's Gam World stuff, it's all available in our Drive-Thru RPG, and the company, like we said, is Throwigames, and it's just like you would think. It's if you spell it out, Throwigames, so THROWIGAMES. So if you look that up on Drive-Thru RPG, you could find his store. And besides all his other stuff is on there, his Gam World stuff's in there. He has all of it available in PDF. He has the 3 Gamazines, the 3 Gam World Adventures, and then the other post-apocalypse. It's all available there. Does not have print on demand anymore on that stuff, correct? Or you do?
I think actually most of it does have print on demand because Drive-Thru did auto convert the saddle stitch to Perfect Bound. Perfect Bound's not my favorite, but it's there. I think everything has it.
Okay, so that's where you can find his stuff, and then in the future, as he gets his stuff out there, like when he writes. So when you do the next Gamazine, are you going to do a Kickstarter for it, or are you just going to produce it on just put up on Drive-Thru?
I haven't decided yet. I probably will do Kickstarter only because I've got a lot of followers on Kickstarter, so that's usually how people are waiting to hear about my next thing. If I put it on Drive-Thru, it would probably just be a little slow rollout. So I'll probably just go Kickstarter again, and then obviously post it to Drive-Thru after it's done.
Okay, and then of course, I'll post that so people will be able to see it, when the Kickstarter's up, like all the other ones. And then when you have the adventure coming out this summer, is that going to be a Kickstarter, or are you just going to be putting it up on the store?
That one I haven't decided yet. It's probably likely again to be a Kickstarter because I have so many people who follow me in that channel, so I probably will do that. But Gamer World's a funny beast, so we'll see where it ends up. But it'll be available at Drive-Thru at the end of the day as well. So.
All right, cool. Yeah, because I got to go back to some of your stuff. Like, I don't have all your back to basics. So I was debating whether, because I know you had a bundle up there for all your back to basics. I don't know if you still have that in effect.
Yep, the bundle will stay up there for those. Also, just if it interests you, I just began some work on the hardcover compilation of the first 10 issues.
I may wait for that.
It's got a new cover from Matt Ray as well, so it's beautiful. So
nice. Yeah, I may wait for that to get the compilation because I have one of the first one. I'm like, you know what? I want to get that too because again, I'm getting all this BX stuff, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm gonna do with it, but I like looking at it. So, all right, so folks, that's Thom Wilson again, and his going back to the apocalypse with Thom here about all his Gam World adventures and zines. So again, he's the only dude putting stuff out now because Wizards of the Coast or Hasbro hasn't done anything for Gam World since 2010 when they put out that 7th edition Gamma Worlds, which we don't like to talk about because I know some people love it and they think it's a fun game and this and that, and you know what? That's fine. We live in a world where you're allowed to like and dislike things. So
no matter what Jared says, even though Jared thinks it's a steaming pile, and yes, folks, I did read the rules. I can't tell you anything about it now because it's been 10 years, but did not like it. But they haven't done anything since then. And the thing is, they're not. I honestly don't think they're ever going to do anything with Gam World again. I know part of the things I've heard from people that I know who know people that, because I know James Ward multiple times tried to get back that license from WotC and then Hasbro because he got his Metamorphoses back, but he tried to get Gam World back, and no matter what, they just flat out said no. But they haven't done anything with, like, they'll do like something small, not support it, and then it dies because they think that they're going to get Hollywood money for Gam World. Like they think that's going to be an option as a movie, and they're going to make tons of money off it. There's another D&D movie happening, so it's only a matter of time.
Yeah, well, because also with the rise of popularity of comic book movies and comic book properties, that they think that, oh no, that's it. Games are gonna we'll make movies and we'll buy the IP. And
remember, Jared, there really was Battleship the movie. So part of me has to say nothing is outside the realm of possibilities if you made goddamn Battleship the movie.
Yeah, but remember they also made the Sci-Fi made Deathlands also, but
it
wasn't any good. But
when it comes to games that are made into movies, let's be honest, they're not all going to be Clue. Okay, they're just not.
But you know what? Those were good movies.
Yeah,
the Clue was good. Clue was good. I enjoyed that movie. I enjoyed the endings, but yeah. So they're never going to do anything with this franchise property, and they won't give. The thing is, they won't give it up either because they would rather have it do nothing than let somebody maybe make a couple of bucks on it. Because they're never going to make anything with it. They're never going to make any money. If anything, I think they probably lost tens of thousands of dollars, if not more, on Gam World 7th edition because
wouldn't be surprised.
I see so many people. There's so much of it out there. People just trying to get rid of it. People can't sell it because people don't want it. It didn't sell. There's a surplus.
Well, they didn't want it because it wasn't Gamma World. Every time a new edition comes out, they take one step further away from first, second edition.
Yeah, that essence.
The further it gets away, I mean, all the people who are making homages and things like that, they're not going, what we really need is a homage to 6th edition or 5th edition. Everybody goes back to the original, old, simple, the original rules because that's what people fell in love with back in the day.
Right.
I thought, 7th edition, if they hadn't slapped the Gamma World name on it and just called it something else, it might have worked. But they anchored it to the Gamma World name and it didn't work. They could have made it a generic sci-fi, tactical miniatures board game, which is basically what it was, and it might have worked better for them. But since they tied it to the Gamma World franchise, I think that didn't help it. Like it didn't help elevate it to what they wanted it to. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So anyway, they're not doing anything with Gam World. Tom's doing lots of good stuff for Gam World for the good edition, as we like to say here. the first edition. I'm even partial to the. I'm a first, second edition kind of guy, because I got second edition when it came out. They're pretty interchangeable. I mean, they tweaked a couple things, but I still think it works very well. So, but Tom's putting Gamma World stuff out. So if you're a post-apocalyptic role-playing fan and you like Gamma World, Tom's your man to get stuff. So,
yes,
so that's it, folks. Again, you could go to Drive-Thru RPG. Find Tom there. Throw I always get it wrong. Throw E or Throw I?
Throwigames.
Throw E.
Yeah.
I pronounce like an E. Throwigames. Spell it out. Throwigames. Throwigames. You can find them there. What are we gonna do next, folks? I don't know. I think we have enough material to do do another off topic, because there's all kinds of stuff that we want to talk about in more detail. We got that Army of the Dead movie coming out. We could talk about that some more. Another heist movie with zombies. But I saw a trailer. One of the trailers of it. It's like, ooh, they're smart. The zombies are learning. That's bad news, man. That's going to be bad for them. So
yeah.
Well, I am interested to see that, for just the fact that they sucked an actor out of the movie, which is really interesting to me. The idea that they CGI'd the stand-up comic Tig Notaro in to replace another character who blew himself up with a bunch of really gross sex harassment, sex battery charges that sort of blew him up and made him box office poison after the movie was in the can. And they went back in and completely, like what they did with Kevin Spacey and Plummer in whichever movie that was. I can't remember the name of it, but they ejected Kevin Spacey and brought in Christopher Plummer and reshot everything and integrated him into the film digitally, which is kind of shocking that you should get, just because the film's in the bag. Do not think that you have to go off your best behavior, or Hollywood will absolutely throw you out the window. Which I'm actually thrilled to see Tig Notaro in it. She looks fantastic in that film. It looked really good in the credits.
Anyway, so I don't want you rambling on for another 30 minutes, Scott. So
that's impossible. When has that ever happened before? You just always
all the time
get in here and judge me with all my rambling. And when have I ever dominated the mic and wouldn't let anyone talk? I mean, that's just ridiculous. This is the part you should just cut the feed. Just not even say goodbye.
Just mute him. It's like I did a class once for work on communication, and I forget the exact classification of it, but you kind of fall under the conversation bully category,
yes.
Scott. So
yes, yes, I am.
You are.
Bad man.
So anyway, so folks, so we got that. We got a couple of loose ideas lined up for some different stuff. So just keep watch. I'll be posting stuff as it comes out. And again, Tom, thanks for coming on. Thanks for talking Gam World. Thanks for talking about your Gam World stuff. We always appreciate that.
And thanks for having me, guys.
No problem. And probably, hey, when you launch these Kickstarters, we'll probably have you come on just to talk about them a little bit, just to help drive a little traffic to you too. Because again,
that'd be great.
You'll know more about them at the time, so we could talk, have a fresh conversation about those individual items, and then people can know more about it, so know what they're getting into. So, again,
Sure.
Thanks for your time. And we forgot to talk. We forgot to talk about it, but I'm stopping. No, the box set you're coming out with.
We'll talk about it next time.
Yeah, we'll talk about it next time.
We got a couple of months, so there's plenty of time.
Okay, cool. Yeah, because Tom's coming out with a post-apocalyptic, but it's like a post-apocalyptic fantasy. I guess more in the realm of more like a Elric kind of thing, like magic back. The world's been destroyed. There's magic, but it's post-apocalyptic. So we'll talk more about that. I totally forgot about that. So,
yeah,
but
right.
Again, thanks. We appreciate your time. I am the Apocalypse Nerd. He is Adam Bomb Glancy. He is Thom Wilson. Thank you and good night.
This episode of Podcast at Ground Zero has been brought to you by Hobo Soup. Hobo Soup, when you have to make do with what you got. Now available in apocalypse size. Keep up to date with us by visiting podcastатgroundzero.com and subscribe to the blog via email.